Hello everyone and welcome to our live webinar today. My name's Anna and I'm from the Continent 8 marketing team. For those of you who are new to Continent 8, we are the go-to infrastructure and security partner to the gaming industry. We offer award-winning global managed hosting, connectivity and cloud solutions to the biggest brands. Our cybersecurity business vertical, C8 Secure, supports many well-known brands such as the Philippine National Bank and Jollibee Foods Corporation, and it offers cutting-edge cybersecurity solutions. Today, I'm pleased to be introducing this webinar where David Brace and Craig Lusher from the Continent 8 team will be examining AI and the deepfake era. AI has revolutionized the way in which we work and live. It continues to empower businesses in countless ways. However, its adoption has also witnessed instances of being employed for malicious activities. So today, that's the discussion point. I'm going to shortly hand you over to David and Craig, who are going to work through a presentation followed by a Q&A. So if you have any live questions, we had a few submitted pre-webinar. Please do put those in the questions section and we'll get through as many of those as possible at the end. And for those who entered our Spot the Deepfake competition, we will be in touch afterwards to announce the winners. So I'm going to hand you over to David and Craig.
Yep, hi everyone, I'm David Brace. I'm the Principal for Innovation and Technology at Continent 8. And I'm joined by Craig. If Craig, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Craig Lusher, the Product Principal for the Secure product set, and thank you very much for joining us.
Cue presentation.
Yep, there we go. So let's begin with understanding AI. What exactly is artificial intelligence? Well, in the simplest terms, AI is the ability of a computer program to think and learn. These processes include learning, reasoning, and self-correction. Central to AI is the concept of machine learning, where algorithms allow computers to learn from and make decisions based on data. Some advanced AI functions use deep learning and neural networks. Neural networks are computational models that are inspired by the human brain and capable of learning and making decisions from complex data through interconnected nodes in a layered structure. Unlike traditional programming, AI adapts their responses based on new data. The impact of AI is vast, revolutionizing industries and reshaping our daily lives. This technology is not just about the future, it's a transformative technology that's shaping our world today. As we move forward, understanding AI's capabilities and limitations is key, especially in the context of deepfakes, which we will explore. If the slide changes. Okay.
Sure, I'm just going to expand a little bit on some of the items Craig has mentioned. So if we look at the fundamental basics of AI as they used to be, as Craig said, neural networks is effectively a method of designing a computer system inspired by the human brain. It's not necessarily a new technology. We've been designing systems like that for quite a long time. Machine learning is the use of data and algorithms to imitate the way humans learn. The difference between this and traditional programming is the program or algorithm you design has the ability to improve its accuracy over time. So it's not repeating the same process and getting the same outcome. It's taking that outcome, feeding it back to the start, and then adapting the process to get a more refined answer. And then finally, we have deep learning. Main difference between deep learning and machine learning is the use of very large data sets in deep learning. And normally this is based on a specific field or specific algorithms to imitate a way a human would specialize in a particular subject or area. So for example, deep learning was used extensively in medical technology. So you take particular data sets and you hone in on an outcome you want to expand the data set and you get better accuracy in the program. Next slide. Now, if we look at modern AI and AI as we see it now, I think the big difference is not in the programs or algorithms themselves. It's I heard a podcast recently, and one of the professors on there had a great quote that the revolution in AI is not actually a revolution in intelligence. It's actually a revolution in computational statistics. What this means is we've just reached the point where we have enough processing power at a decent price point and enough data storage to be able to run the same programs faster and with bigger data sets. Now, modern implementations of AI have been broken down. They're all based on the same principles we've previously covered, but if we just pick on a couple here, they're more specialized. So computer vision, for example, one great example of this is unlocking your smartphone. So it's effectively an algorithm that can classify objects to a high detail and produce a response. Another great example would be the so-called self-driving cars. So for those of you with a Tesla out there with full self-driving, that's effectively computer vision, and yeah, it's not artificial intelligence, it's just responding to the visual inputs being given. Next one we'll focus on is natural language processors. This is a subset of deep learning, which effectively enables algorithms to process and understand human language. As I'm sure you all know, we all speak in different ways, we build sentences in different ways, even though we're speaking the same language. And natural language processing is the ability to add context to content and then automatically perform repetitive tasks. A great example of this is autocorrect or auto-suggestion if you're typing away on the keyboard. One of the interesting concepts here we've got there is nearly bottom left, is reinforcement learning. This is the idea of using rewards and punishments built into computer programs to guide towards a more accurate outcome. So if you get closer to the example, the algorithm is given a fake reward. If you get further away, it's given a fake punishment. So you could award it points and deduct points in the same way as they used to at school. And the final one we'll look at is expert systems. This is just an evolution of deep learning. So it's an even more specialized software package designed to solve very complex problems in the way that a human expert can. So think looking at very specialized medical diagnosis or identifying new chemical variations and reactions, etc. So over to you, Craig.
Thank you, David. So obviously there's deep fakes out there, but there's also cheap fakes as well. So it's very big difference between the two. I'll show you an example in a minute of a very high quality deep fake, and we'll kind of talk about what makes it high quality. But obviously artificial intelligence has come a long way from early days of problem solving algorithms, and we've moving into now complex systems that's capable of learning and adapting, as we've mentioned. This journey from program machines to learning entities shapes how we actually interact with the technology. So deepfake technology, although a new phenomenon, it's rapidly evolved, and where it required high-end resources, it's now more accessible and leads to its increased use and potential misuse. There's deepfake for hire software out there and services on the internet that could be easily found, and people can make their own deepfakes and quite often do. Nicolas Cage has been used to star in every single film known to man using this technology. The progression not only highlights technological advancements, but also the need for awareness and considerations that come along with that. So deepfakes are digitally altered media that are created using AI. The original content has been replaced with something else, and it's often realistic and very convincing. So the term deepfake is combining deep learning, which is an advanced form of machine learning, you're using neural networks, and constant iterations, and the fake is accurately describing the AI fabrications. So if technology allows me to now, I would just show you this example here.
I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive?
So there's a quick snippet there just to show what that looks like. Obviously, that's a very high quality deepfake. However, you can still kind of see the way that the mouth moves and things like that, that potentially there's something not quite right with it. The fact that it's on a black background means that it's very easy to change the figure in the front without actually impacting the rest of it. So it's quite easy to make, and there wasn't kind of much movement and things like that. But obviously we'll come on later on to see how we can detect these things and why that's also important. But how are they made? So they're primarily crafted from using AI and deep learning, as we've spoken about, and specifically generative adversarial networks, or GANs. What GANs are, they kind of have two parts to them. One that creates the fake content, and then the other that tries to detect if it's real or fake. Then this process is kind of done again and again and again. This back and forth iterative process continues until the fake content is actually indistinguishable from the real. It's a sophisticated technology and requires a lot of computational power and large data sets to train the AI. So while the potential for misuse is significant, as we will come on to, deepfakes also have positive applications, and they're not just a tool for deception. So in entertainment, deepfakes have been used for film or TV, allowing for de-aging of actors, such as Harrison Ford in the latest Indiana Jones movie, or perhaps by bringing historical figures to life, and perhaps you even going further and using, a LLM type model to be able to interact with that character and their personality. In this example, we see Arnold Schwarzenegger here has been replaced as Dirty Harry, and a young Leonardo DiCaprio starring in Star Wars. Elon Musk as a baby, which is interesting. And the most famous one of all, I suppose, is Pope Francis as a gangster. So imagine how this technology can be used in a classroom setting as well, or in computer games where you interact with the characters and their personalities in a realistic way. This will also bring immersive virtual reality and tools like that will shape the future of entertainment. But it's a double-edged sword, and it's important to recognise that deepfakes, whilst realistic nature possesses, whilst their realistic nature possesses risks for misinformation and manipulation, understanding both their creative and destructive potential is crucial for navigating the deepfake era responsibly. Being informed about these technologies is no longer optional. It's necessary for digital literacy. We can no longer believe in what we see with our own eyes. This poses risks for security, for policing, and the CCTV state that we're kind of sitting at the moment. So from a security perspective, the rise of deepfakes presents new challenges. We're looking at increased risks of misinformation, digital identity theft, and sophisticated cyber fraud. Understanding these technologies is crucial in developing effective strategies to maintain and mitigate these emerging threats. Traditional measures, such as firewalls and antiviruses, are insufficient against these complex cybercrime. AI and advanced defenses for spotting deepfakes and threat sharing is of utmost importance. This kind of graphic here just gives you an idea of where voice clones and deepfakes are encountered by what channel. So unsurprisingly, YouTube is right on top there, with TikTok just underneath it, Instagram, Facebook. And as you scroll down, you actually see news media sitting in there as well. So that's always a little worrying. And that's where consumers have actually encountered deepfakes. David?
Yeah, I for one am slightly scarred by that image of Elon Musk as a baby. I think that's going to haunt my dreams for the next few weeks. But moving on, impacts of deepfakes. As we said, deepfakes can affect various sectors, so media, business, entertainment, and especially this year, there's 50 countries and potentially 4 billion people going to be voting in elections this year. We've already had 2 so far. This raises massive ethical and cybersecurity concerns. So there's been a number of examples of deepfakes used for satire. I know the Saturday Night Live TV show in the US is a big fan of producing deepfake videos of various politicians saying something, but they've actually generated some they've decided not to show because they were that realistic. So, for example, Trump and Biden sitting down and having a conversation in the White Office, agreeing who will win the next election, was such a convincing deepfake. They decided not to put it out there. So for cybersecurity implementations, we're talking about deepfakes enhancing phishing attacks, for example. We've all received training, or hope you've all received training on phishing attacks that come via email. But now, using deepfake technology, you can receive those as voice notes, you can receive those as phone calls, you can receive them even as computer-generated video calls, and also for spreading misinformation. I'm sure we've all received the forward on email raising a threat or awareness, and some of those are just misinformation. Additionally, ethical and societal concerns. So as Craig said, deepfakes erode trust, and they create an ethical dilemma. Can you really believe what you see on the internet? I'd probably say no most of the time. You know, check, and verify. That's the thing to say before you share and believe. And in conclusion, that a collaborative effort is needed, not only amongst us on the cybersecurity side, but also against everyone on the consumer side to ensure a responsible and secure digital environment in this era of deepfakes and manipulated media, we'll call it. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So obviously, just to stay as well, these images that go alongside, they're all AI generated as well, as you can imagine, based on the slides that we're showing. So we're going to talk now about kind of deep fakes, and essentially what they are is fraud, right? So fraud has always been around, and social engineering is a type of fraud, plus technology is very dangerous. So, I mean, the very first kind of social engineering or fraud that was used was social engineering, where people tried to pretend to be somebody else, and it's still very effective. Just look at the MGM example. It took 10 minutes of social engineering and it cost MGM hundreds of millions. Next, there was bot technology, which is trying to spoof phone numbers, alter your voice, or use cruel websites and use there were traditional programs or tools that actually made fraud more efficient. And authenticity was proved using captures to differentiate the legitimate people or bots, as everybody knows, and have identified hundreds of fire hydrants and things like that. And that this is, bots are used for data mining. In fact, going back to the captures just quickly, the reason you're identifying fire hydrants and identifying cars and motorcyclists and things like that is actually driving forward for data sets to be used for driverless cars and to help them improve identifying what actually is a real object or not. And now we're in the era of generative AI, where it's pretending to be human. So deepfakes, synthetic IDs, disinformation, and it's constantly learning, constantly getting better. And it's like the criminal gang hiring, well, it's like the criminal hiring an army of criminals to help them with their goal. And they can start pushing boundaries that have never seen before with this technology. So looking at some real world examples, this one perhaps not so obvious now, but in 2020, when this video circulated, you see the Belgian Prime Minister, and she is explaining how advocating for climate action, and how she is linking climate with problems with COVID-19 and deforestation. And this appeared on Facebook, and it received over 100,000 views within 24 hours. And many viewers actually believed the video was genuine at the beginning, and it really highlighted the rapid spread of misinformation through deepfakes and the difficulty in discerning authentic communications from manipulated content. Next, I've got an example of a voice deepfake, which you think of deepfakes and you think video, and you think how clever they are because they're really clear. But it's almost more dangerous to have a voice deepfake because you don't have the other cues to pick up on. And so deepfakes aren't just visual. And what was thought to be the first significant AI deepfake was actually March 2019, where an audio scam hit a UK-based energy company. And fraudsters were actually able to use AI to mimic the voice of the parent company's CEO and urge the UK CEO to transfer $243,000 or pounds to a Hungarian supplier. And then obviously those funds kind of disappeared from there. And it was actually only on the second transfer attempt that suspicions were raised. So, you know, this really demonstrated the potential of AI in sophisticated corporate fraud. And this was really one of the first in its kind. And it led to, you know, re-evaluation of security protocols, etc., and just highlighted the importance of this new technology. In the entertainment industry, there was the Carrie Fisher case. So deepfakes do bring ethical challenges. After Carrie Fisher's passing, deepfake technology was used to recreate her in Star Wars, and it sparked debates on digital resurrection ethics. The industry's response, well, you know, discussions on ethical guidelines and policies for using an individual likeness after death kind of still was brought to the surface. And just last year, actors and writers in Hollywood striked due to AI. Then there's AI chat for social engineering. So as I mentioned earlier, fraudsters having an army of employees essentially to try and get into a company. This example was actually in a Philippine casino where LLMs were used for social engineering in text form against the customer service employees. It was called Chatty Goblin, and it was used to basically persuade the customer service representative to download a malicious command file that then allowed them to move laterally and gain access to their systems. And it was an AI-powered chat for customer service. And obviously this, it wasn't just this company. There was a big campaign against casinos in Southeast Asia from 2019 right up till today. David, over to you.
Yeah, great. So I'm going to cover some of the security concerns around deepfakes. And one of the biggest ones, and there's been extensive academic research and a couple of real world examples, but most of this is academic research at this point in time, is around security compromises with biometric security. So what we're talking about here is, we mentioned earlier, computer vision. So the ability to unlock your smartphone, for example, with your face. That's fairly extensive technology that is used for a lot of ID verification, KYC verification, and for access to a lot of systems. And deepfakes threaten the biometric verification in almost every single industry, and especially in casinos, sports betting, and banking, which are all highly regulated industries where there's extensive legal requirements for both ID verification, age verification, and KYC checks. And the biggest risk around these is primarily around face swapping, which we'll get onto on the next one, because we've got a good example of that. But there's also risks on facial recognition in age verification. So, for example, having to hold up your driving license with a picture of you, compare it to your face, and then off we go. So one of the other possible uses of this is around voice generation using deepfake technology. So, for example, placing calls to a land-based casino and then using AI-generated voice to impersonate a high roller to get a free suite, for example. You know, it's not a big risk, it's not a big loss, but it's a risk as well. Again, KYC verification spoofing, so know your customer protocols have been targeted by deepfakes, and there's extensive research showing that the vast majority of commercially available KYC verification systems are susceptible to deepfakes. So, for example, manipulating face matching during online account setups. Most of these online account setups use similar phrases. So you're asked to repeat a phrase 3 times, you're asked to look up, you're asked to smile. Because they use the same basic method, you're able to prepare this ahead of time and effectively just feed a video back into the algorithm, and you can pass the vast majority of these KYC checks. Now, even if you've got the best KYC and the best ID verification system, the other big flaw that's been identified is is storing these biometrics in an unencrypted fashion. Now, in this day and age, you'd think that everyone would know you should have all data at rest encrypted, but there's still a number of examples out there of both free open source and commercially available programs that either store or transmit biometric data in plain text. This leaves it open to manipulation and being swapped out as well. So I can do a biometric ID verification check, but if somebody takes the data that's stored on a company server and swaps it with somebody else's ID check and registers it to my account, then I'm no longer able to get into my account. And one of the other things we should do is look around strengthening security, biometric security and KYC processes. Now's probably the time to review them and also collaborate with cybersecurity experts. There's an extensive suite of AI detection tools out there for safety and trust. Some of them are open source, some of them come with your KYC providers. Now's the time to review. Next slide. Me again. So we'll just run through some examples we have here. Now, you'll know all of these are research papers, either done by universities or by, for example, Sensity is a company that sells deepfake detection technology. So it would make sense that they would do research into the ability of bypassing it. So they've actually created a deepfake toolkit that you can use that will allow you to use face swapping technology. What we mean by that is, I'm sure, for those of you that have either got kids or are young enough, Snapchat filters. Snapchat filters do live real-time image manipulation. If you think of that on steroids, you can effectively replace a live video stream of my face with Craig's face. We're talking about exactly the same thing. So these guys carried out a test on the top 10 vendors of automated, what we call liveness tests. Now, liveness tests are looking at videos when you're doing ID verification to check that it's a real person and not you just holding a photo up there. And they managed to fool 9 out of 10 of these commercially available systems with their toolkit. They've since produced a further study out there, and they had an 86% success rate in not only bypassing liveness tests, but also in getting through full KYC checks with 5 different vendors out there. So they got all the way through the check, positive verification, and off you go. So the key takeaway here is AI-generated face swaps, can fool all tested face matching services. There's every single one out there. Next up, it's a slightly old study here. It's 18 months old now, but Penn State College did exactly the same thing. They did basic facial verification systems. So we're talking comparing my video screen now to a photo. So we've all done this where we're applying for a visa or we're applying for a bank account. It asks for a scan of your passport, and then you take a selfie of yourself, upload them, and it compares them. So they found that all common verification methods can be bypassed using AI-generated image in their test. The final one we got down here was even older, and a lot of this has changed now. But what we found was a lot of the hyperscale cloud providers provided basic image verification services for IDing people. And what they found is that all of these services were susceptible to the APIs. So what this means is you wrote an application and it queried a server hosted by Amazon or Microsoft or Google or any of these companies. And what they found was the APIs were either unencrypted or weakly secured. So you might be sending valid data back to this service hosted by one of these companies, but it was able to be intercepted and manipulated to generate a positive result, even when it was the wrong image. So again, what we're looking at here is there's an urgent need to look into all of these systems you use. Next slide. So yeah, things you can do right now. So if you have written or your company has generated any kind of ID verification systems in-house or any KYC systems in-house, now's the time to review and assess them. There's a number of toolkits out there. There are guidelines, there are frameworks. Look at them. The same comes for external suppliers. So it's time to review and assess the weaknesses in any suppliers for the same thing: KYC, ID verification, liveness tests, for example. The other thing you have to do is look at a risk management profile on this. Yes, there is a risk that all of these systems can be bypassed, but how big is that for your company? Do you have additional layers of checking behind it? Do you have human reviews of any kind of slightly suspicious ID verification or KYC attempt? Do you have additional multi-factor authentication for a logon? Are you just using somebody's face, or are you using a PIN code, a password, a fingerprint? So layering on additional types of security onto a basic ID verification. If your risk analysis deems this as a big risk, it might be time to start looking at deploying automated deepfake detection tools around any form of video, audio, or biometric verification tests you have. And finally, for the in-house ones, a great example of this is looking at using the additional sensors that come with modern smartphones. Obviously, this is only for apps for smartphones, but the modern smartphones have a vast array of sensors that you can pull in to do liveness detection, video detection, and look for image manipulation. I mean, a great example of this is Google were the first people to market with their Android smartphone with Face Unlock. But the first iteration just used the camera. So you could unlock anyone's smartphone with a photo of that person. So you could take their smartphone, hold a photo of them against it, and because there were no additional checks such as movement, depth of field sensors, or anything like that, you could unlock the phone with a photo. So look at using the more advanced technologies that are out there with these frameworks. Over to you, Craig.
Thanks, David. So, a few years ago, it took 26 hours of learning to develop a deepfake of someone. Now it takes only 3 seconds for something passable or a cheap fake. In fraud, the high pressure environment that the fraudster kind of pushes on the victim means that the victims don't necessarily worry about the quality of it, especially if it's over a phone line or something like that. Someone famous, there's lots of content out there. If it's in movies, obviously there's really high quality content, and they have less background noise, which gets worked into the average. But obviously, if this is based off like quick and easy YouTube clips and things like that, it won't be as good. That said, high production influencer style selling a product or influencing their viewers to kind of move on to and use different products, that could actually be done quite easily as well with deepfakes. So, I mean, obviously there's significant challenges here, but how do we detect and mitigate them? And I just want to show you some kind of tools and strategies. So, obviously these things are AI generated, which means that to fight AI, you need AI. So advanced AI algorithms are capable of analysing these videos and images for inconsistencies. And whilst they will appear real to you and I, they can drill down even on the pixel level and realise that perhaps some colours wouldn't exist in nature, or maybe there's some pattern in there that just, whilst it looks good from far away, when you zoom in, it just perhaps wouldn't exist in nature. So there's different other ways. There's the spatial artifacts, so such as lighting and shadows and side movement blurs and things like that. And fricatives, which are like the S sound and the F sound, like in San Francisco, your mouth actually closes to restrict airflow. So it's these subtle ways that humans kind of transform air to make noise, and the computer-generated voice actually just can't do this, and they leave telltale signs, and the quality is not there. Also, the speed in way the humans kind of change mouth shape is quite easy to pick up on, and synthetics can't do that. And sometimes sounds being made, whilst they actually sound okay to us, they can't actually be made by a human. So machines can detect this as well. So on a telephone call, you have 8,000 samples per second, 8K samples per second for voice. So in a 10-second clip, you have 80,000 samples for you to check and make sure that that voice that you're hearing is right. And obviously with higher quality like internet audio, it's more like 16,000 samples a second. Whereas video, you only have 60 frames per second, on a good day. So compared to voices, 16,000, the voice is something key to focus on. Voice analysis also helps identify lip sync in video. And if the human lips are moving and making those kind of 16,000 micro movements every second that a genuine person would display. Voice and lip sync is a good way to spot deepfakes. AI voice analysis can definitely identify this. And a good lip sync needs a large amount of CPU and storage, and it's really hard. So whilst it's good for movies, for fraud, it's just not practical. So detecting human voice and synthetic voice is a good thing to do, and also for video, obviously. As David mentioned, perhaps one day we would have this technology to be able to detect the liveness built into our phones or browsers and confirm a probability of real voice and video. So I think that will be coming along soon. I just want to play another clip here which just demonstrates the liveness of a video and how AI will detect this. On the top left, you'll see a green figure, and obviously 1 means live, and the lower that gets, the less live it is as such. So let me just play that for you.
This hearing is on the oversight of our artificial in a oversight of our artificial intelligence, the first in a series of hearings intended to write the rules of AI. Our goal is to demystify and hold accountable those new technologies to avoid some of the mistakes of the past. And now for some introductory remarks.
Too often, we have seen what happens when technology outpaces regulation. The unbridled exploitation of personal data, the proliferation of disinformation, and the deepening of societal inequalities. We have seen how...
I think we've got some people saying they can't hear the audio out there, so...
Oh, okay, fair enough. Apologies. When you're chopping through audio sources, it's always a risk. So apologies, everybody. Essentially, what I was showing at the beginning there was obviously the green was showing quite close to Senator Blumenthal's voice being live, and now it says liveness is at 0.01, even though it sounds very realistic to us, and believe me, perhaps I'll share the links at the end. It actually, the AI algorithms has detected it as a fake, and quite clearly a fake. So these tools are very good, and you know they can be it's a good thing to rely upon. So blockchain is another kind of technology that allows us to authenticate and prove something is real, especially ensuring its integrity and origin, because it's a immutable ledger means that every piece of digital content can be traced and verified, making it much harder to pass off deepfakes as genuine. Again, CCTV for evidence for policing or security, this is important. So GDPR. Deepfakes bring up serious concerns about unauthorized use of personal data. GDPR's strict consent guidelines do apply here, offering a degree of protection. Moreover, the right to be forgotten, GDPR can act as a powerful tool against malicious deepfake content. So globally, we're seeing laws targeting deepfake and AI misuse. These laws focus on content and intent behind creating and distributing such content. The legal landscape is evolving to keep up with unique challenges posed by deepfakes, including political manipulation and harassment. And in June last year, the EU Council accepted a draft AI Act, which included the outright ban on facial recognition and emotional recognition. However, in November, some exclusions were added to allow police to use facial recognition for some circumstances, in some cases. So cybersecurity firms like Continent 8 play a pivotal role as they provide active monitoring and real-time threat intelligence into these deepfake threats that are circulating. Implementing AI-driven surveillance and analysis is key to flagging and responding to deepfake content swiftly. Threat sharing platforms are imperative to stay ahead of the AI and deepfake curve. Equally, education and clients and the public about deepfakes and the risks, and promoting this kind of digital literacy to recognise these threats. So, AI systems analyse vast data sets to identify patterns and anomalies that indicate security threats, recognising malicious activities like unusual network traffic or unauthorised access attempts. So, we can use this technology to improve cybersecurity, not just from the deepfake side of things, but actually the whole, our tools allow kind of AI to assist us in protecting networks and applications. So central to that is the concept of time decay. So when we use machine learning, we apply time decay models to give less weight to older data, acknowledging that the landscape of cyber threats is constantly changing and recent data is more indicative of current threats. We can also tailor language models that comprehend the specific contents and terminology of cybersecurity toolsets, which enhance the precision of threat detection. And enhancing toolsets with AI, whereas these models are integrated into cybersecurity to improve capabilities in log parsing, response automation, and incident management. So also knowledge graphs are important. AI can construct knowledge graphs mapping the network of entities within IT environments, which is crucial for understanding attack vectors and investigating vulnerabilities. Knowledge graphs are updated in real time by AI and offer insights into complex cyber attacks, aiding tracing the attacker steps and the methodologies used. Also, enhancing data for deeper insight, AI enriches incident logs with additional context, integrating threat intelligence and user information to provide a comprehensive security event view. AI-driven data enrichment supports the generation of compliance reports, automating the data collection and correlating necessary for regulatory standards. And AI is a cyber defense pillar nowadays. And it's not just a tool, but it's a foundational element in cybersecurity, offering dynamic, informed, and effective defenses against sophisticated and frequent cyber threats of today. David?
Yeah, and I guess one thing to say is Craig has highlighted how we, CA Secure and all cybersecurity companies out there make extensive use of machine learning and AI-like systems. But the important thing to stress is everything is human curated. So we might be using an AI algorithm to review data, but it's only presenting data for a human to review. We might be using AI to generate a report, but it's all reviewed by humans. So there's no true automated AI detection out there, or no true automated implementation of security countermeasures out there. Everything is human curated, and that's an important thing to stress. And really the fundamental thing we use it for is actually, as we call it, a force multiplier. It allows your staff to be more effective. We're using machine learning and AI for what it's good for, which is reviewing vast data sets, looking for anomalies. So if you're taking billions of events or logs into a security operations center, that's far more than any human could ever possibly review. So you use machine learning to filter down to a much smaller number of anomalous logs, or ones that don't look right, to then present it to a human. So just I'm not going to run through all these examples on the screen. Everyone can read. So I'll just highlight probably the most important one is the privacy risk of AI. So what a lot of people don't realize is the vast majority of AI companies, especially the publicly available large language models out there, have some quite interesting terms of conditions and terms of use. And fundamentally, anything you feed into any one of these programs becomes part of the data set for anyone else to see, use, and review. So if you ask it a simple question, like, give me a good restaurant, use it like a Google kind of search, or you ask it to review a document, if you upload that document into there, it's in the public domain. And that document then becomes part of the data set that the AI uses. So it's great for using it to rewrite something you're working on or something you're going to make publicly available. But if it's any kind of confidential data or anything like that, you should consider the security and privacy of anything you put in there. And also the effect on individual privacy. I mean, it might not be important to you, but is it important to your customer? Is it important to your colleague or important to your business? We'll just highlight point 3 there, as this is quite relevant to our industry. We've seen a significant increase in credential stuffing attacks. Now, very briefly, a credential stuffing attack is effectively acquiring a list of either emails or usernames and corresponding passwords, and just firing them as fast as possible at an application or website to see which ones let you in. Now, using an AI or a machine learning algorithm, you can vastly speed that up. But what you can also do is use it to refine your data set. So if you get a user credential stuffing attack against 10 websites and the same combination fails each time, the AI will be able to drop the ones that failed, just use the ones that are good, and it speeds this up. So, a simple call to action there is multi-factor authentication. Just because somebody's logged on using user ID and password, don't make them make any critical changes to usernames, to email addresses, to bank details. And we've seen what happens when a credential stuffing attack goes right, if that's the right word, or if it works. Money is siphoned off, people lose money, and extreme reputational damage. Up to you to decide whether that's gone right or gone wrong. We'll just say it's okay. On to the next one, Craig.
Yeah, thanks, David. So obviously, what's the future of AI in cyber offence and defence, and kind of what are we doing now? So I'll just touch on this very quickly, but obviously AI used to create advanced botnets that can adapt their tactics and bypass network defences, and they can mimic human behaviour to evade detection. So this is available. Also, automated vulnerability discovery. AI algorithms can efficiently scan for and exploit network vulnerabilities and learns from network responses to improve the attack strategies. So, somebody controlling these devices could go out and, say, well, look at these networks, how can you get in? And essentially, the AI could almost create that access for the end user to then get in and stop all the hard legwork for him or her. So AI in defending against DDoS attacks as well. So AI systems dynamically could counter DDoS attacks and analyze traffic and adjust defenses in the same way as they could when they're trying to attack. But the idea is, trying to keep one up on the other. These things will happen. These things are, slowly starting to surface. So it's important to have everything in place for when it hits you, especially in iGaming where uptiming is essential. Obviously, with incident management, AI aids in quick incident response, deploying tactics like rerouting traffic or rate limiting to lessen the impact of attacks, and vulnerability scanning as well. So you can actually scan your own websites, especially with Continent 8's WAP product does this today. Scans your website to suggest additional kind of rules that would make that more would harden that security posture. Obviously, future trends could be, or future abilities could be for autonomous attack adaptation, where they could AI could independently alter their attack methods in real time to avoid detection and neutralize countermeasures. So, their characteristics and signatures that would identify them traditionally in a traditional security system could be overcome. So yeah, I mean, at Continent 8, we do have AI-powered systems and machine learning systems in our WAP and our SIM and our EDR, and we're continuously adapting to new threats and sharing this content in our threat sharing and community discussions. So, David?
Yeah, and I think the easiest thing we can sum this up as we're running kind of close to time is that trends are going to be more and better and faster. So, you know, the offensive and nefarious uses of AI and deepfake, they're just going to get more complicated. They're going to get better. They're going to get faster, which means you and we and everyone involved in this has to be aware, and we have to raise our game as well. So, you know, we're constantly researching, refining, and adapting our models to meet these new threats. You know, the rise of our advanced countermeasures with advanced detection tools and bringing these things to market are going to be important. And finally, I guess the big thing we want to highlight in a non-technical manner is ethical frameworks. As Craig mentioned, there's some regulations coming from the EU. There's going to be regulations coming in the UK and the US as well. Everyone's bringing forward a policy. So we'd urge every single one of you to, within your organization, look at and see if you have an ethical framework for the implementation of AI and the use of data. And if you don't have one, maybe it's time to start looking at one. There's a number of open source and standards organizations that have basic frameworks for you to customize. And yeah, now's the time to start looking at these ethical frameworks. You know, there's a balance between the benefits and responsible uses of both data and artificial intelligence. You say just because you can, you know, maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. You have to decide.
Thank you.
And the final thing is we're going to send out a recording, and we'll also send out the link to the YouTube videos so you can listen to them rather than just watch them. And along with that, we'll also send out a survey, and you'll be able to benefit from taking us up on a 1-hour free phone call, video call. Hey, if you're coming to ICE, an in-person consultation and strategy call as well with either Craig, myself, or one of our other experts within C8 Secure. So I understand we had some questions come through as well. So you want to start reviewing those?
Yeah, thanks, David. Thanks, Craig. I'm just going to launch a poll quickly whilst we jump into the questions and answer session, just to see what the uptake will be on signing up for the free cybersecurity consultation. So please, I'll keep this open for 40 seconds or so. So please submit that if you're live and watching the webinar right now. Okay, so in terms of questions, there's a few kind of themes coming in, and some of which you may have kind of already touched upon already. The first one being, is there a language factor in defending against hackers? Is that something that is, you know, considered in terms of AI?
Yeah, so I mean, first, obviously language is different all over the world, right? However, computer language stays the same. So it's designed to be universal. You know, Python or whatever something is written in, anybody from any kind of spoken language can use that. So there isn't really a language barrier as such when it comes to this. David, anything you want to add?
Yeah. I was going to say the same, especially for deepfake technology. It's pretty easy out there for me to generate a video of myself speaking any language I want to out there. The great example of this, one of our colleagues went to a Christmas party there where the introduction was done in 8 different languages. Now everyone knew the person was bilingual, so you know, English, Spanish, French, Italian was great. When they started speaking Quebecois, which is a very specific dialect of French, just upsetting all my Canadian colleagues out there, everyone kind of twigged on that it was computer generated, but it was photorealistic, and it took 2 minutes to do. So yes, there is a language barrier, but it's very low, basically.
Okay, thank you. There's been a few questions posed about certain industries that might be more prone to being attacked, or you know, from an AI point of view. Journalism is one that's been mentioned, and financial markets. So I suppose the question is one industry more prone to an attack versus the other, or should everyone be, you know, concerned and aware of what could happen to them via AI?
I mean, anywhere where there's you know, cash-rich environment for somebody to get their hands on is going to be more interesting, I think, for the guys that want to make money. there's different motivations, right? There's the activism side of things as well. So, you know, if some people don't agree with, or some groups don't agree with certain, you know, religions or certain, you know, or even the gaming industry, things like that, then those industries could be taken advantage of as well. And you've got a lot of call centers and things like that, and people are trying to. It's an easier reach because it's quite a wide audience to receive those kind of essentially phishing attempts, as they were, just using this advanced technology.
Yeah, no, I'd add
anything?
Anything that involves financial transactions, but also anything that involves acquiring data on people. So, you know, we've been fairly superficial in covering this and just focusing on financial transactions. But when you want to get really in depth into financial transactions, you need deep personal data on people that can normally only be attained through government agencies or that kind of thing. So being able to spoof the ID verification on the government agency would allow me to access somebody's tax records, for example. With the tax records, I could generate almost a complete fake identity. So yeah, it is anything that either directly accesses money or leads to money that the industry is targeting.
Okay, thank you. I'm conscious of time, so one final question is there a clear definition of what deepfake technology is and the kind of set criteria that is kind of agreed upon, or is it kind of loose in terms of it's constantly developing?
Who wants that?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of what it is, I mean, it's anything where you're trying to. It's anything where you're trying to pretend you're somebody else, but using multiple senses, I suppose, to do that. So it's fraud, essentially, whether it's malicious or not, but it's using multiple senses generally. And that it's the high quality aspect that kind of sits in there. Whereas phishing attempts over email, I mean, you know, they could be misspelled and this, that, the other, but it's a textual thing. This is humans, you know, often react a lot more to other humans and the aliveness, as it were. So, you know, if you can get those things right and those markers for real video or real audio, then you're more like that's more what a deepfake is, essentially.
Yeah, okay. I'd probably simplify it down to say anything that can fool somebody with more than a quick glance. So, yes, for example, we have the advertisement for this webinar out there with me and Deepfake Me. I mean, you could perhaps argue that's not necessarily a deepfake, because anyone would met me in person would know my forehead is not as smooth as that deepfake generated image. It's effectively, you know, a deepfake is one that will pass the initial likeness test. Yes. And, you know, one of the things, the phrase we often hear in this is it passes the uncanny valley test. So you look at that deepfake image of me, that's kind of uncannily valley like me, but it's also too smooth and too polished and if it's too perfect, it's probably fake, you know. So
too good to be real.
Too good well, obviously I'm not too good to be real, but it's nice of you to say so.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that's all we've got time for today, but as David mentioned earlier, this recording of the session will be circulated post-event, as well as some summary slides. So look out for that in your email. If you have any questions, please feel free to get back in touch. And just to reiterate, obviously, that kind of special consultation 1 hour, please do let us know if that's something that you want to take hold of, and we'll be in touch very soon. So thank you so much, Craig and David.
No problem. See everyone at ICE.
Yes, indeed. Thanks all. Bye-bye.